Hello. In our last conversation, we talked about the inevitable breakthrough, the moment when your tiny catalytic actions build to a critical mass and a new reality emerges. We saw how a single 1-degree shift can change your entire trajectory, how chipping away at the old identity can reveal a masterpiece. And perhaps you've experienced this for yourself. You've taken a small action, you've stayed consistent, and you've had your first breakthrough. You've reached that new level of fitness, you've launched your project, you've mastered a new skill. That feeling is undeniable. It is a moment of profound validation.
And this is precisely where the most dangerous part of the journey begins. The breakthrough you just had, it doesn't matter. In fact, focusing on it might be the biggest mistake you can make. This is the paradox of success. We are taught to chase the finish line, but the moment you cross it, you risk falling into one of two traps. The first is the trap of complacency. You tell yourself, I did it, I made it, I can finally rest. You stop doing the tiny actions that got you there, believing the momentum will just carry you forward forever. You go back to your old habits, and the hard-won identity you built begins to crumble bit by bit. The second is the fear of the fall. You become so protective of your newfound identity that you're terrified of doing anything that might threaten it. You stop taking risks, you avoid new challenges, you are no longer focused on growing, but on not losing. You become a curator of a single moment of success, rather than a creator of a life of perpetual growth. In both scenarios, the breakthrough you worked so hard for becomes a cage, trapping you in a state of stagnation. So, if the first breakthrough isn't the point, then what is? The point is what comes next. The purpose of the first breakthrough wasn't the victory itself, but the validation of the process. It was proof that the philosophy works. It was a test you passed. And now you are ready for the second breakthrough. Think of a rocket launch. The first stage is powerful, burning a tremendous amount of fuel to get the rocket off the ground and into the lower atmosphere. But if that's all it does, the rocket will simply fall back to Earth. The second stage and the third are what propel it into orbit. The first stage is your initial breakthrough, but the real goal is to reach escape velocity. It is the point where you are no longer fighting gravity. You are in a state of perpetual effortless motion. This second breakthrough is the moment you stop thinking in terms of single victories and start thinking in terms of unbreakable momentum. Let's go back to Alex. He had his breakthrough at the open mic night. He was on top of the world. For a week he felt like a true musician, but then he didn't do a 10-second audio clip. He didn't write a single lyric. He told himself, I'm a performer now, I don't need to do those tiny things anymore. He fell into the trap of complacency. Then a few weeks later he had another show and it was a disaster. The audience was quiet. He felt the old anxiety creep back in, but this time it was worse because he had something to lose. He was terrified of losing his new identity. He had reached the summit, but he had forgotten to pack his climbing gear for the next mountain. The second breakthrough for Alex isn't about a perfect performance. It's about the deeper realization that the point of the 1-degree shift wasn't to perform, but to become a person who lives the creative process, regardless of the outcome. His second breakthrough is the moment he stops chasing applause and starts loving the work itself. This requires a fundamental shift in your mindset. You must replace the goal of achievement with the goal of perpetual creation. The first breakthrough was about proving you could do it. The second breakthrough is about proving to yourself that you are the type of person who just does it forever. The moment of victory is not the finish line, it's a new starting line. It is a signal that you have mastered a certain level of the game. And now you are ready for the next. The real second breakthrough is not a moment of external validation. It is an internal recalibration. It's the moment you stop needing the win and start needing the work. It's when the process becomes the reward and the outcome is simply a byproduct. This is how you move from a breakthrough that's merely inevitable to momentum that is truly unbreakable. The first one doesn't matter because it's only the first step. The second breakthrough is the one that sets you free. Let's dig into the science of why the first breakthrough is so misleading. It's tied to a concept psychologists call the hedonic treadmill. Our brains are hardwired for novelty and reward. When you achieve a goal, when you get that promotion, finish that marathon, or have a successful show, you get a rush of dopamine. It feels incredible, but our brains quickly adapt. The baseline of what feels good shifts, and you find yourself back at the starting line, needing a new rush to feel the same sense of accomplishment. This is why so many people get stuck in a cycle of chasing bigger and bigger achievements only to feel empty once they get there. The treadmill is a trap. The second breakthrough, however, is a way to step off the treadmill entirely. It's the point where you find joy, not in the fleeting victory, but in the steady rhythm of the process itself. It's the moment you stop chasing highs and start loving the daily discipline. It's about building a system that delivers joy and fulfillment, regardless of the outcome. So, how do you cultivate this unbreakable momentum? It begins with what I call micro-recalibration. The graceful return we talked about before was about getting back on track after a stumble. Micro-recalibration is about making tiny daily adjustments to ensure you never get too far off track in the first place. Think of a tightrope walker. They don't just put one foot in front of the other. Every single step is a constant, almost imperceptible series of micro-adjustments to stay balanced. They don't wait for a stumble to recalibrate. They are in a constant, flowing dialogue with their balance. You should be the same. Instead of waiting until you feel totally off track to get back on the horse, practice tiny daily check-ins. Did you write today? Great. Did you not? Acknowledge it without judgment, and then perform your 1-degree shift right now. This practice of micro-recalibration turns your journey from a series of dramatic leaps and falls into a graceful, continuous flow. This leads us to a crucial, often overlooked aspect of the journey, the joy of the plateau. We're taught to see plateaus as a sign of failure. You've been exercising for a month, you're not seeing any more progress, and you get discouraged. This is where most people quit. But the breakthrough is often just around the corner. A plateau isn't a sign of failure, it's a sign of strengthening. Think of a boxer training. They spend weeks, even months, building up their stamina and technique. They might not be able to knock out their opponent yet, but they are building the foundation, the muscle memory, the endurance, the internal strength that will make the breakthrough possible. The plateau is where the internal unseen work is happening. The second breakthrough is the moment you learn to love the plateau, to find satisfaction in the silent, grinding work of strengthening your foundation. Now back to Alex. After his disastrous show, he did his graceful return. He recorded a 10-second audio clip, but he didn't just stop there. He started practicing micro-recalibration. Every morning he would ask himself, did I do my one thing yesterday? If not, he would do it immediately, without shame. He wasn't focused on getting a better performance. He was focused on being the type of person who consistently creates. He started to find a new kind of joy, not in the applause, but in the sound of his guitar in an empty room, in the simple act of putting a melody to his thoughts. He started mentoring a younger musician who was just starting out, and in the act of teaching, he realized that the point wasn't the first breakthrough, but the process of becoming a mentor, of perpetually creating and sharing. His second breakthrough wasn't a single event. It was the internal realization that he was no longer just chasing success. He was living a creative life. The second breakthrough is the moment you learn to love the work more than the reward. It's when the process becomes the product, and when you reach that point, your momentum becomes truly unbreakable. The first breakthrough doesn't matter because it's only the first step. It's the test that proves the path is real. The second breakthrough is the one that sets you free, moving you from the world of temporary achievements to a life of continuous, unstoppable growth. You stop being a person who achieves and start being a person who creates. This brings us to a crucial point about the illusion of stagnation. The period before the breakthrough can feel the most difficult and discouraging. This is where most people quit. They see the lack of visible progress and mistakenly conclude that their efforts are in vain. It's like heating a pot of water on a stove. The water goes from room temperature to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, then to 100. You've applied a tremendous amount of energy, and all you have to show for it is hotter water. The progress is there, but the phase change hasn't happened yet. And then at 212 degrees, the water boils. It turns to steam. The change is dramatic, immediate, and visible. That final degree of heat, that final small action, is the one that causes the breakthrough. It's not about the magnitude of the action, but about the accumulated effort that precedes it. You are closer to your breakthrough than you think, precisely because you feel like nothing is happening.
This is the truth that separates those who succeed from those who give up. So, how do you navigate this period of unseen progress? You build a feedback loop of belief. Every single 1-degree shift, no matter how small, creates a tiny win. Our brains are hardwired to seek rewards. When you successfully perform a small, intentional action, your brain releases a hit of dopamine. That tiny feeling of accomplishment reinforces the behavior, making it more likely that you'll do it again. Each successful repetition strengthens your belief in your new identity. You are no longer just trying to be a writer. With every paragraph you write, you are collecting evidence that you are a writer. This is a virtuous cycle. The small action builds a small win, which reinforces a new belief, which makes the next small action easier, which leads to another win. This is how momentum is not just built, but sustained. A breakthrough becomes not just a possibility, but a certainty. And you don't have to do it alone. One of the most powerful tools in this journey is the power of an unlikely community. For centuries, we have been a tribal species. We are deeply influenced by the people around us. If you are surrounded by people who believe in the big leap, who are always waiting for the lightning bolt of inspiration, you will be constantly pulled back to their stagnant reality. To build a new identity, you must find a tribe that celebrates the daily chipping away. They are the people who understand the value of the 1-degree shift. They are the people who will celebrate you for reading a single page, for doing one push-up, for making a single phone call. They don't just celebrate the breakthrough, they celebrate the quiet, unseen effort that makes it inevitable. This community provides the social support and accountability that turns a solo journey into a shared mission. They become the fertile soil in which your habits can grow. The breakthrough is inevitable. It is not a matter of if but when. Every single action you take is a vote for a new reality. Every time you choose to take the 1-degree shift, you are casting a vote for a new identity. And your brain, your mind, your very reality is counting those votes. The person you are destined to become is not a ghost. They are a quantum reality waiting to be collapsed into form. This is the law of compounding action. We often think of compounding in terms of money. A small investment left to grow can become a fortune over time. Your tiny actions, your 1-degree shifts, are not just adding up. They are multiplying. They are building on each other. One push-up today makes the second push-up easier tomorrow. One sentence written today makes the next sentence feel effortless. The breakthrough is the moment when the compounding becomes visible. It is the moment when the sapling that has been quietly growing roots for years suddenly shoots up into the sky. It is the moment when the 1-degree shifts create a new reality. The truth is, your breakthrough is already underway. The moment you take that first tiny action, you set in motion a chain reaction that cannot be stopped. So start small, be sacredly inefficient, embrace the graceful return, find your unlikely community, and trust the process. The boiling point is just around the corner. The breakthrough is not something you hope for. It is something you build. It is the inevitable result of your consistent catalytic actions. Let's go deeper. The graceful return is powerful because it is an act of self-compassion, but it also points to an even more fundamental truth. The most profound actions are often the most inefficient. We live in a world obsessed with efficiency. The shortest path, the fastest route, the quickest result. But what if the most powerful actions you can take are the ones that seem to have no immediate purpose? I call this the principle of catalytic inefficiency. Think of a potter. They don't just throw a lump of clay on a wheel and expect a perfect vase. They have to center the clay. They have to get their hands dirty. They have to spin the wheel for a seemingly long time just to get the clay to a stable, centered state. This act of centering is not about the final form of the vase. It is about building the foundation for everything else. It is a slow, inefficient, but absolutely catalytic step. Your morning meditation, your one push-up habit, the one page you read before bed, these are not about immediate results. They are about centering yourself. They are about the sacred, inefficient process of building a foundation so solid that when you finally take a big action, it is not a desperate gamble but a natural expression of who you have become. These small, inefficient acts are the most powerful of all because they are the ones that build your identity. They teach your brain that you are a person
who follows through even when there's no visible reward. Now let's confront the feeling that nothing is happening. We talked about the bamboo tree. We talked about the sculptor. But what about the moments when you are in the chrysalis? Think of a caterpillar. It eats and eats, growing larger and larger, a seemingly linear progression of growth, but then it stops. It forms a chrysalis. To the outside world, it looks like it has quit. It has retreated from the world, but what is happening? Inside, a profound and violent transformation is taking place. The caterpillar literally digests itself. Its body breaks down into a nutrient-rich soup, and then its cells, guided by its DNA, begin to reorganize themselves into a completely new creature. The visible stagnation of the chrysalis is not a period of rest or failure. It is the most intense, transformative stage of all. You are not failing when you feel like nothing is happening. You are in the chrysalis. The internal work, the rewiring of your brain, the dissolving of your old identity is all taking place. The feeling of being stuck is a natural signal that you are on the brink of a new form. It is a sign that the masterpiece is about to be revealed. This is a crucial reframe. Your feelings of frustration are not an indictment of your efforts, but a confirmation of your progress. Another reason we get discouraged is something I call the power of the gap. There will always be a gap between who you are and who you want to be, and the bigger your dreams, the bigger that gap will feel. We often make the mistake of viewing this gap as a source of shame or failure. We look at the distance and feel overwhelmed. But what if we saw the gap differently? What if the gap wasn't a source of failure, but a source of power? The gap is not a chasm, it's a blueprint. It's a clear map showing you where to place your next tiny action. The person you want to be is a musician who practices every day. The gap is the distance between you and that reality. So, what's the smallest action you can take to close that gap? You record a 10-second audio clip. The gap is not a judgment, it's a guide. It tells you exactly what to do next. When you start seeing the gap as a guide and not a judgment, you stop feeling overwhelmed and start feeling empowered. The gap is your friend. And finally, let's talk about what happens when the breakthrough arrives. Most people assume the breakthrough is the finish line. They think once they hit that moment of success, the struggle is over. But that's not true. The breakthrough is never the end. It is a new beginning. Consider the mountain climber. For months, they train for a single peak. They endure grueling hikes, sore muscles, and bad weather. They feel the illusion of stagnation. But then one day, they stand on the summit. They have their breakthrough. But what do they find when they look out from the top? They see 100 other bigger mountains they could climb. They realize the purpose of the climb was not to stand on the peak. The purpose was to transform themselves into the kind of person who can climb a mountain. The purpose was the journey itself. The breakthrough is not the destination. It's the moment you realize that the person you've become on the journey is the true prize, the moment the journey becomes effortless. You are no longer just trying to be a runner, you are a runner. The habit is no longer a struggle, it is who you are. The breakthrough is when the old identity is finally shed and the new one takes flight. The journey of the 1-degree shift is not a path to a single moment of victory. It is a path to a life of continuous, inevitable transformation. So, don't wait for the big leap. Embrace the tiny, sacredly inefficient actions that build your identity. Don't be discouraged by the feeling of stagnation. Know that it's a sign that your biggest transformation is happening below the surface. Use the gap not as a source of shame, but as a roadmap for your next small step. And when the breakthrough arrives, don't stop. Just look around for your next mountain. The person you are becoming is waiting for you.